My name is Silas Blackwood, and this is the story of how I lost an empire and found a soul. It began on a Tuesday, the kind of gray, drizzly Seattle day where the sky hangs low enough to touch. I was at the absolute apex of my life, the final hours of a multi-billion-dollar hostile takeover that I had orchestrated for 6 months. My company, Nexus Dynamics, was my religion, and I was its unforgiving god. At the height of this corporate warfare, my head of security found a 7-year-old girl wandering the pristine, sterile campus. She was clutching a worn-out stuffed rabbit and a crumpled piece of paper with my name scrawled on it. She told them her mommy had said, if she didn't wake up, to find the man named Silas Blackwood. She said he was her daddy. The news didn't hit me like a father. It hit me like a crisis manager, a variable I hadn't accounted for. My first thought wasn't of her, but of the shareholders, the media, the catastrophic PR fallout. A child appearing out of nowhere was a narrative I couldn't control, a bug in the perfect code of my life. Security brought her to the executive wing, this tiny rain-dampened creature standing on the Italian marble, looking utterly out of place in my world of glass and steel. Her name, they said, was Lily, and in that moment, she wasn't a daughter. She was a problem to be solved, a threat to be neutralized. If you've ever had a moment where your entire world tilted on its axis, a moment you knew would change everything, hit that like button so I know I'm not alone in this. I just didn't realize then that the world tilting wasn't the crisis. It was the beginning of my salvation. That first night, I took Lily from the cold, corporate fortress of Nexus to the personal one, my penthouse. It was less a home and more a statement, a 3,000-square-foot monument to my success, suspended high above Seattle. Everything was controlled by an AI I'd designed myself. The temperature, the lighting, the opaque to transparent glass walls. The color palette was a strict monochrome of black, white, and chrome. There were no photographs, no clutter, no sign that a human being actually lived there. It was a sterile, optimized environment, designed for peak performance, not for comfort. And into this sterile world walked Lily. She was a splash of chaotic, vibrant color in my grayscale existence. She left a small, muddy footprint on the polished concrete floor and clutched her worn-out rabbit, which she called Patches, as if it were a holy relic. I watched her on my security feed as I tried to work. She didn't cry. She just explored, her tiny fingers tracing the cold edges of my minimalist Italian furniture. At one point, she walked up to my enormous, stainless steel refrigerator, a monolithic slab of metal, and asked, "Where are all the pictures?" I asked her what she meant. "On the fridge," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Mommy had pictures of me and Grandma and our cat." The question hung in the air, echoing in the vast, empty space. My refrigerator wasn't for pictures. It was for nutritionally optimized, chef-prepared meals. Her simple question highlighted an emptiness in my life I hadn't even recognized. It was the first time I realized my fortress wasn't protecting me. It was imprisoning me. It's funny how a child's question can cut deeper than any corporate attack. Down in the comments, tell me which one you are. Are you a person who needs perfect order, or do you thrive in a little bit of beautiful chaos? Type order or chaos below. That night, the chaos had a name, and it was sleeping in my guest room, a room that had never hosted a guest before. After Lily finally fell asleep, I retreated to my home office, the command center of my empire. The social worker had left a small, sealed evidence bag on my desk. It felt alien on the cold, black marble. Inside, there was no letter, no legal document, just a cheap, generic USB flash drive. In my world of encrypted cloud servers and quantum computing, this felt like an artifact from another era. For a moment, I considered destroying it, erasing this entire anomaly. But curiosity, a trait I usually suppressed in favor of certainty, won out. I plugged the drive into my laptop, a machine worth more than a car. A single video file populated the screen. For Silas, MP4. I clicked it, and there she was. Isabel. Her face filled my 8K display, and for a second, my breath caught in my chest. It had been nearly 8 years. She looked different. Thinner, tired, but her eyes had the same fire that had captivated and terrified me all those years ago. She wasn't looking at a camera. She was looking directly at me. "Silas," she began, her voice a little raspy but clear. "If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. And it means Lily found you." She took a shaky breath. "There's no easy way to say this. She's yours. Our daughter." She explained everything, her fear, her reasons for disappearing, her illness. But it was her last words that shattered my composure. She leaned closer to the camera, her gaze piercing. "I know how you think. I know you'll see her as a complication, a variable in your perfect equation. But Silas, she's the only legacy that truly matters. Don't delete her." She used my own terminology against me. Delete her. It was what I did with problems, with inefficiencies, with anything that threatened my control. The video ended. I sat there in the silence of my penthouse, with the Seattle skyline glittering below, feeling like a ghost had just ripped through my digital walls and exposed the hollow code of my existence. The next morning, I tried to compartmentalize. I sent Lily to a nearby elementary school with the help of a hastily hired assistant, telling myself I would deal with the situation after I closed the deal of a lifetime. The hostile takeover of our biggest rival, Aerodyne, was in its final critical phase. At 2 p.m. sharp, I was on a video call with their board, a tense, high-stakes negotiation where every word was a weapon. We were hammering out the final price per share, a number that would define my career and secure my place in the tech pantheon. My entire focus was on the data, the strategy, the kill. Then, my private phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I ignored it. It buzzed again, insistent. Annoyed, I answered, putting it on mute. It was the school nurse. "Mr. Blackwood, Lily has a fever. She fell on the playground and has a nasty scrape on her knee. She's very scared and keeps asking for her daddy." I was about to tell her to give her some Tylenol and that I'd send someone, when the nurse said, "Hang on, she wants to talk to you." And then I heard it. A small, hiccuping sob. "Daddy?" she cried, her voice trembling. "My head hurts. Can you please come?" In that instant, the multi-billion-dollar negotiation, the faces of the board members on my screen, the entire corporate empire I had built, it all just faded into white noise. The sound of her cry was the only data that mattered. I unmuted the conference call, cut off their lead investor mid-sentence, and said the words that would cost me millions. "Something's come up." Then I ended the call. Just like that. I hung up on my legacy. We all face forks in the road, where we have to choose between the person we are and the person we could be. If you've ever had to make a choice like that, a choice between your ambition and your heart, I want you to simply type the word choice in the comments below. In the deafening silence of my office, I grabbed my keys. For the first time, I wasn't running to a meeting. I was running to my daughter. The fallout from that ended call was immediate and brutal. My board was furious. The deal with Aerodyne was in jeopardy. And my reputation as an unshakable closer was tarnished. But as I tended to Lily's scraped knee and coaxed her fever down with cold compresses, the frantic alerts on my phone seemed to come from a distant planet. A hostile takeover was indeed underway, but it wasn't happening in a boardroom. It was happening inside the walls of my own home. My life's operating system was being rewritten, one chaotic line of code at a time. The invasion was quiet, but relentless. One morning, I found a colorful, messy finger painting of a purple dinosaur taped to my monolithic, stainless steel refrigerator. My first instinct was to rip it down, to restore the perfect, sterile surface. But I stopped. The dinosaur was wearing a crooked business tie. It was, she later explained, a portrait of me. Slowly, her world began to overwrite mine. A fortress of my expensive Italian sofa cushions and cashmere throws dominated the living room. Her brightly colored toys were like little landmines of joy scattered across the polished concrete floors. My AI-powered home, once a silent sanctuary of order, now echoed with the theme song from a cartoon about talking ponies. The ultimate moment of surrender came one afternoon. I walked in to find a small, bright pink stain on my pristine white leather sofa, the casualty of a spilled strawberry smoothie. The old Silas, the man from just a week ago, would have erupted. He would have seen a flaw, an imperfection that cost thousands of dollars to fix. But I looked from the stain to Lily's terrified, wide-eyed face, bracing for my anger. And in that moment, the market value of the sofa became zero. I just knelt down, wiped her chin, and said, "It's okay. It's just a couch." The stain stayed. It was the first accepted flaw in my perfect fortress. A battle scar from a war I was finally, gratefully, beginning to lose. My domestic surrender did not go unnoticed in the corporate world. The Aerodyne deal was salvaged, but at a much higher cost, and my reputation was cracked. My rival on the board, a ruthless operator named Marcus Thorne, who had coveted my position for years, saw his opportunity. He called an emergency meeting. I walked into the boardroom, a place where I was once king, and was met with a wall of cold, hostile faces. There was no preamble, no corporate niceties. Marcus, acting as the board's executioner, got straight to the point. "Silas," he began, his voice dripping with false sympathy, "the board acknowledges the complexity of your new personal situation. However, your recent behavior has demonstrated a critical lack of focus. It has cost this company and its shareholders dearly." He let that hang in the air before delivering the final blow. "We need the old Silas back, the machine. The man who built this company from nothing. Not the father." He looked around the table, securing their nods of agreement. "So, the board has reached a decision. You will make arrangements for the child to be placed in a more suitable, long-term environment. A top-tier boarding school, a private care facility. Your lawyers can handle the details. You will sever this distraction and return your undivided attention to Nexus Dynamics." He leaned forward, his eyes glinting. "Or, we will vote to have you removed as CEO, effective immediately. The choice is yours, Blackwood." Your empire or the girl. It was the ultimate ultimatum, the crown or the child. As he spoke, my gaze drifted to the corner of my phone, which was face up on the table. The lock screen was a photo I'd taken just that morning, Lily, with a milk mustache and a gap-toothed grin. The choice they thought was impossible suddenly became the simplest decision of my life. The throne had become a cage. Silence descended on the boardroom. Every pair of eyes was on me, expecting a fight. They expected the old Silas, the shark, to negotiate, to threaten, to find a loophole. They expected me to sacrifice the girl to save my kingdom. I let the silence stretch, savoring their anticipation. Then I calmly picked up my phone. They probably thought I was calling my legal team. Instead, under the heavy mahogany table, I sent a single, encrypted text to my private wealth manager. The command was simple, immediate, and irreversible. I looked up and met Marcus's smug gaze. "You're right, Marcus," I said, my voice quiet but clear, cutting through the tension. "This is about my legacy." A slow smile spread across his face. He thought he'd won. I stood up, sliding my chair back softly. "You see, for 20 years, I thought my legacy was the valuation of this company. The stock price, the patents, the name Blackwood etched onto the skyline." I paused, letting my eyes sweep across their greedy, expectant faces. But I was wrong. I slid my phone across the table toward Marcus. On the screen was the confirmation of a transfer. My entire controlling interest in Nexus Dynamics, billions of dollars, had just been moved into an irrevocable trust. The beneficiary, Lily Isabel Blackwood. "You can have the company," I said. "You can have the throne." Their faces went from triumph to utter, slack-jawed disbelief. I walked to the door, feeling the weight of an empire lift from my shoulders. I didn't feel loss. I felt free. It's a strange feeling to realize the thing you've chased your whole life isn't what you truly want. Whatever time it is where you are right now, whether it's morning or late at night, take a second and ask yourself, what does the word success truly mean to you? Let me know one word in the comments. As I walked out of that room, I wasn't an ex-CEO. I was just a father. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Walking away from Nexus Dynamics was like stepping out of a hurricane into a quiet field. The world was suddenly still. For a few weeks, life was simple. I made pancakes, badly at first. I learned the names of the other parents at school pickup. I was just Dad. I thought I had fought the final battle and won. But the world I'd left behind wasn't done with me yet. The news of my dramatic exit made headlines in the financial world, painting me as either a madman or a saint. And that publicity brought an unwelcome ghost to my door. It came in the form of a certified letter from a Seattle law firm. A man named Nathan Hayes, claiming to be Isabel's older brother, was petitioning the court for a hearing regarding Lily's custody. My blood ran cold. I met him in a sterile law office that felt uncomfortably like my old life. Nathan was nothing like the soft, artistic Isabel I remembered. He was a sharp, focused family law attorney with eyes that judged and condemned. He didn't want a reunion. He wanted a fight. "I've read all about you, Mr. Blackwood," he said, his voice void of warmth. "The titan of tech, the ruthless workaholic. I've read about how you hung up on a billion-dollar deal for a scraped knee and how you abandoned your company. That isn't stability. That's impulsiveness. My sister ran from you once, for a reason." He laid out his case with chilling precision. He argued that I was emotionally ill-equipped to raise a grieving child, that my wealth was a poor substitute for a loving, stable family, a family he claimed he could provide. He wasn't just questioning my past, He was threatening my future. This wasn't a boardroom battle I could win with logic or money. This was a fight for my daughter's heart. And my opponent believed, with every fiber of his being, that I didn't have one. Nathan's legal challenge forced me into a world I was completely unprepared for. The world of school meetings, teacher conferences, and child psychology. To prove I was a fit father, I had to engage with Lily's life in a way I hadn't before, which led me to the office of Hannah Carter, Lily's school counselor. And let me tell you, Hannah was not impressed by Silas Blackwood. She had a calm, steady gaze that seemed to see right through the expensive suit and the reputation. To her, I wasn't a titan of industry. I was just another wealthy, disconnected parent who was probably a source of his child's anxiety. Our first meetings were a disaster. She'd ask me about Lily's emotional triggers or her coping mechanisms, and I'd respond with talk of scheduling and structured activities. I tried to solve Lily's grief like it was a flawed piece of code. Hannah would just listen patiently, a flicker of disappointment in her eyes. The breaking point came during a particularly brutal week of legal depositions with Nathan. I was exhausted and felt like I was failing. I walked into Hannah's office, sat down, and the carefully constructed armor I wore just disintegrated. "I don't know what I'm doing," I admitted, the words feeling foreign and heavy. "I can orchestrate a corporate merger across 3 continents, but I have no idea how to help a little girl who misses her mom. I'm failing her." For the first time, Hannah's professional guard dropped. She saw past the CEO and saw a desperate father. That's when everything changed. She stopped being just a counselor and became my translator, teaching me the language of a child's heart. She gave me books to read, phrases to use, ways to listen. She became my unlikely, essential ally in the fight for my daughter. It's one of the hardest things in the world to admit you need help, especially when you're used to being the one with all the answers. If you've ever had to swallow your pride and ask for help, and you remember how freeing that felt, just do me a favor and write "I asked" in the comments. It'll be our little secret. Hannah didn't just help me keep Lily. She taught me how to truly be her father. With Hannah's guidance, I began to win the war for my daughter's heart, not in a courtroom, but in the quiet moments at home. My legal team used my progress to show the court my commitment, and Nathan's challenge began to lose its footing. But the true turning point came on Lily's 8th birthday. While exploring the contents of that fateful USB drive, I had discovered that Isabel hadn't just left one video. She had left a digital legacy, a series of encrypted files, one for each of Lily's birthdays until she turned 18. On that day, after the cake and presents, with Hannah there for emotional support, we sat down to watch the video labeled, "Happy 8th birthday, my little star." Isabel appeared on the screen, looking healthier than in the first video, a sad smile on her face. "Happy birthday, my sweet Lilybug," she said, using a nickname that made Lily gasp softly. 8 years old. You're probably missing your 2 front teeth by now, and I bet you're the fastest runner in your class. She spoke with such warmth and intimacy, referencing inside jokes and shared memories. Then, her tone grew serious. "I know this birthday feels different. And I want you to know, it's okay to be happy and sad at the same time. Your heart is big enough to hold both, my brave girl. It's okay to love your new life and still miss our old one." The message was a masterclass in emotional intelligence, a gift of parental wisdom from beyond the grave. It gave Lily permission to feel everything without guilt. For me, watching her, it was both beautiful and agonizing. I was seeing the incredible mother Lily had lost, and the amazing woman I had let slip away. This annual ritual became our most sacred tradition. It was our way of keeping Isabel present in our lives, not as a ghost of the past, but as a guiding star for our future. It was the proof Nathan could never overcome. Isabel had trusted me to be here for these moments. The birthday videos became the heart of my legal defense. My lawyers presented them as part of Isabel's final wishes, a clear plan she had laid out that began with Lily finding me. Faced with such an intimate and powerful testament, and witnessing my transformation firsthand, Nathan's legal challenge crumbled. In a quiet meeting, without lawyers present, he finally withdrew his petition. "She chose you, Silas," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't understand it then, but I see it now. You're her father." With that, the war was truly over. Nathan didn't disappear. He became the uncle Lily deserved, a bridge to her mother's family, and a welcome part of our own. The void left by the corporate battles was filled with something infinitely more valuable: peace. My relationship with Hannah, forged in the crucible of this crisis, blossomed into a deep, quiet love. We were no longer just allies. We were partners. We decided we needed a new blueprint, one not built on stock prices and market share. We sold the cold penthouse in Seattle and bought a warm, sprawling wooden house on Bainbridge Island, a place where you could smell the pine and the sea. A short ferry ride, but a world away. Together, Hannah and I used the proceeds from my old life to start a new foundation in Isabel's name. The Legacy Project, dedicated to funding technology that supports childhood education and mental wellness. My skills were finally being used for something that didn't just create profit, but created hope. One of our first projects as a family was planting a garden in our new yard. As the four of us, me, Lily, Hannah, and Nathan, stood looking at the patch of earth, Lily announced she wanted to plant a cherry tree, just like her mom loved. Standing there, between the woman I loved and the daughter who saved me, I realized I hadn't lost an empire. I had just finally found my way home. So here I am, not in a boardroom, not staring at stock tickers, but in a quiet backyard on an island, with the smell of salt and pine in the air. My daughter is inside, arguing with the woman I love about whether a dog should be named Sparkles or Waffles, and I've never felt more successful in my entire life. For 20 years, I built an empire on a simple premise. Everything could be optimized. Life was a series of problems to be solved with logic, data, and ruthless efficiency. Love, connection, grief. They were messy variables, anomalies to be minimized. I was wrong. Love isn't the variable you solve for. It's the framework. It's the operating system for a life of meaning. The most important legacy you can build isn't a company or a monument. It's the safe, warm world you create for the people you love. It's in the quiet moments, the bedtime stories, the shared laughter over a silly named dog, the promise of a cherry tree that will bloom year after year. My story isn't really about a CEO who gave up his company. It's about a man who was given a second chance to write a better code for his own life. It's a story about realizing that true wealth is measured in laughter and trust, not dollars and cents. And my hope, in sharing this with you, is that it might serve as a reminder that it's never too late to look at your own life, at your own definition of success, and to ask, is this really it? Is this what truly matters? If this story resonated with you, if you believe that everyone deserves a second chance to find their true purpose, then become a part of this community. Hit that subscribe button, not just to follow a channel, but as a promise to yourself to keep searching for the legacy that truly matters to you. Thank you for listening.